Raging forest fires in Sumatra have led to blankets of haze enveloping first Singapore and now Malaysia. The air pollutant index has exceeded hazardous levels in a number of areas, including in Selangor. In this episode of KiniTalk, we speak to Selangor's second-term EXCO for Tourism, Consumer Affairs and the Environment, Elizabeth Wong, about what's being called the worst haze in Malaysia's history.
Actually, if you look at all the stations that have been placed, it's in Banting, Kuala Selangor, Port Klang. These are stations which pick up transboundary haze. So Port Klang is actually the closest to Sumatra. So whenever there's a spike, we already can more or less expect, certain transboundary haze to come in. So in the past 5 years or so, we do get readings, but never this kind of readings. Never, it's very rare to get 200 and above, because 200 and above is, very unhealthy. You will get it, 100 plus in Port Klang. So this, I would say, is one of the worst. I would say this is as bad as 1997. That was quite some time ago.
Okay, so with the data coming in, we were only getting it 3 times a day previously, and now the Environment Minister has announced that they'll be updating it hourly.
I think the Environment Minister doesn't realise that his ministry updates it every hour, and it's available on their Facebook. So if you go to Natural Resource and Environment Facebook, you can see that they are actually doing it hourly.
So they have been doing it hourly
this whole time? Yes, they have, yeah. It's just that when you go to different websites, they don't necessarily put out all the information. And it's not necessarily a good thing to, unless you enjoy looking at data or you're a scientist, it's good enough an indication to get 7 a.m., midday, and 5 p.m. because it will give you more or less the trend that is going to happen.
Okay, so, all right. So what about the credibility and transparency of the data, the way that how do we ensure that what the public is getting is actually...
I think we have to assume that, NRE, I don't work in the ministry, I think their data is, I don't think they're hiding anything. I think this is the data. I know I've been getting more or less the same kind of data for the past 5 years I've been in EXCO, and there's been nothing to hide. Although there's some that are calling for more precise information, and of course I support that, to have more readings, better analysis of what is actually out there. Because right now, if you look at what the readings are based on, it's based on, for example, in Malay, habuk halus, fine particles. They're actually measuring particles, CO2, SO2. So there could be maybe a wider range of things to be analysed. But that's for the ministry to decide.
My next question is going to be, what has the Selangor government done? But you've already said that you're giving out masks. As in the
yeah, we're giving out masks. We are, of course, we have to inform people. People still don't know what needs to be done. I mean, it's a lot of common sense. They don't wear masks, they don't drink enough water, they feel sick, they stay at home as opposed to going to the hospital. These are things that, people should do. So that's why we keep repeating ourselves, because not enough people are listening to to the advice. Our bomber, they are quite familiar with Sumatra. They've done a lot of firefighting there, and then I think we have to work together. It's not pointing finger is one thing, but if you don't work together to put out the fire that's causing so much misery, not just Singapore, Malaysia, but even to their own, like even Sumatrans, then it's just going to continue. So we're talking about, there's a lot of hot spots, big fires, and it's not going to be easy to put out.
Another issue is that some have complained of conflicting messages from the federal government and this local government. For example, in Johor, apparently while the national announcement was that it was just an advisory, that it was a state of emergency, the state government said something else. And similarly in Selangor, we're advising people not to go to school.
Yes, absolutely.
Because the education minister might not have the same view. So what is the solution here? Are you actually coordinating?
Well, we have asked the education ministry to continue closure of school. For example, on Sunday they announced that schools would be closed on Monday, which we thought was actually a good thing. They didn't wait until it was 300. But then, suddenly they flip-flopped, and then on Tuesday it's open, whereas the situation had actually become worse, last night and today. So I think the education ministry needs to re-look into their decision. I think you can't wait until the situation is hazardous before you close. 200 and above is already quite bad, quite suffocating, especially for young school kids. That should be our principal focus, should be the health of our children.
Between
we've made an appeal to federal government to continue closure, but there has to be I think it's long overdue, a review of the National Haze Action Plan. I think the National Haze Action Plan has not been updated for quite some time. So the some of the standards that they put may not be applicable today. So, for example, I am very sure all the states, including Barisan National States, would agree that schools should be closed when the API is 200 and above. I hope to be sitting in a meeting when all this is over, sitting in a meeting, reviewing, with federal government some of these haze-related SOP. We don't think it's necessary, in fact, to call state of emergency because it sounds so daunting, and it's a bit silly when you have state of emergency one day and then in 36 hours you lift it. So it's better to have better chain of command, better standard operating procedures, better standards, and I think it's overdue. But anyway, that's just to manage a crisis situation in Malaysia in the event of a bad haze.
Okay, haze has become a yearly event, and so has our enforcement measures improved over the last few years? Because it's been going on every year now. So what's
I
changed?
think in Selangor, I can only speak for Selangor. I can't speak for any other states or even for Sumatra. If we look at the number of open burning places, especially in peat areas, definitely it has improved compared to 10 years ago. So we can actually chart the number of acres that have burned 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and even today. So in other words, actually we have put in a lot of preventive measures. This is a very good, unfortunate lesson for people to know that, if you open burn, this is what is going to happen if it's out of control.